I want to talk first today a little bit about the group presentation you're going to be doing later on in the semester. I wanted to get the groups assigned and sort of locked in early so that you all had plenty of time to prep for this. So I was able to give most people their first or at least third choice. Some regions of the world were much more popular than others. Europe and the Middle East, for example, were both like overwhelmingly popular. So if those are your first choices, I tried to give them to you, but I couldn't always guarantee that. Anyway, I hope that you'll still end up with something that you find interesting enough to keep you motivated. So first group is going to be on February 7th. You're going to be doing the Greek comedy Lysistrata. And what I want you to do is relate it to its context in the Peloponnesian War. And that group is going to be, so when I call your name here, raise your hand and keep it up for a second so your other group members can note who you are. It's going to be Victoria Naley, Chris Slocum, Hannah Odom, Zach Price, and Matthew Jones. So at the end, take note of who's in your group. And at the end of class, it would probably be a good idea to get together quickly and exchange information. On the 14th of February, doing the role of Dharma in the Bhagavad Gita will be Louisa Pedraza, who's the girl with the hat and the glasses who sits here but is not here today. Darlene Brock, Daniel Goss, and Anaya Shealy. All right. A week after that, on the 21st of February, working on the Tao Te Ching and the Warring States period in China, right? You see a running theme here, right? You'll always be relating the text to either some historical period or to some sort of cultural topic, right? So working on the Tao Te Ching will be John Arthur, Jessica Jerial, Devonte Hatton, and Katrina Brown. Working on the Pillars of Islam in the 1001 Nights, Xavier Porter, Evelyn Marchant, Megan Fuller, Emily Everson, and Kayla Carter. That'll be on the 21st of March. Women in the Epic of Sunjata. That'll be Bianca Kamara, Will McCoy, where's Jesse Hertz, Alexa Whitaker, and Sheldon Holtz. And finally, really fun stuff at the end of the term, on the 25th, the last day, the last class day of the semester, Kyle Kirby, Josh Buckner, who is not here, Theodore Hendrickson, Bryce Wilkinson-Purdue, and Harley Ponder will be telling us all about human sacrifice and religious ritual in Aztec and Maya culture. Good times.
This class is morbid.
Well, art is morbid. Culture is often morbid. Okay, so here's what you are going to be expected to do, right? Most of you, all these are 4 or 5 person groups, right? So you'll be expected to have about 25 minutes worth of material to present. So, be prepared to talk for about a third of the class. And be prepared as well to, please field questions from your classmates and do things to encourage them to ask questions, right? In general, think about the kind of classes you actually enjoy taking, right? The stuff that your instructors do that actually keeps you engaged. Right now, just sitting in a dark room while somebody scrolls down a PowerPoint actually keep you engaged. In most cases, no, right? Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. I tend to assume maybe too much, yeah. Try to keep it interesting, right? Come up with activities for the class. Right, you're going to want to present the information, but you're also going to want to try to get the class involved. So try to come up with ways to do that. You know, if that's like inventing a game for the class, you know, giving out prizes for people who answer questions correctly, that sort of thing, right? Then, you know, go to it. That's all fine. That's all fair game. I am going to expect you to use at least 3 secondary sources. I will make at least one recommendation of a secondary source to each group. You can also use the bibliographies that I post on GeorgiaView. But from there, you're on your own, right? Now, as far as what are considered good sources, I want you to stick to stuff that you get from our library resources, right? Now, sticking to stuff that you get from our library is a little bit limiting because the library itself is small, its holdings are pretty small. You will probably have to request some things from other libraries. If you don't know how to use Gilfind Express, if you don't know how to use interlibrary loan, if you're not sure how to use you know, Galileo, the databases you can draw journal articles from, then just come talk to me, right? Come ask me about it, and I'm happy to show you. One other thing I expect you to do for this project. I want you to do, since this is a group project, and look, I mean, I remember doing group projects when I was a student, where one poor, highly motivated sap got stuck doing all the work. And I don't want that to happen to any of you, because it sucks. So I want you to give me a short write-up, just, you know, a paragraph about each person in your group, what they contributed, what they did, including yourself. I want to know how your perception of what you did and what you contributed matches up to what everybody else says about you. And I want you to rank each member of your group across the following 3 dimensions from 1 to 5, right? 1 being lowest, 5 being highest. Right? Responsiveness first. Was this person easy to get a hold of? Right? When you text messaged or emailed them, did they get back to you quickly? Did they come to meetings? Did they do the sorts of things they were asked to do? I want to know also about collegiality, right? Was this person reasonably pleasant to work with, right? I don't expect that all of you are going to become best friends over this. I don't expect, you know, you'll necessarily form all kinds of warm, fuzzy, lifelong friendships. But adults need to be able to work with other adults without friction, right? So I do want to know if anybody in the group is causing issues, right? Is causing friction, like, you know, just not getting along with others. Finally, I do want to know about each person's intellectual contribution, right? Somebody may be perfectly responsive, may be very, very nice to work with, but isn't actually putting that much into the project, right? So I want to know what people are actually doing, right? I want to know to what extent everyone in the group is actually contributing ideas. And so that's what you'll rate in this last dimension here, right? So any questions about any of this? Any questions at all? Yeah, Daniel.
For the secondary sources, is that 3 each or 3 for the whole group?
3 for the whole group, right? I mean, this is, you know, a relatively short presentation with a fairly focused topic. So I don't necessarily expect you to do super serious, deep research, right? One mistake I've made with this assignment in the past is not really giving very much, you know, very many guidelines on sources. So I'm trying to nip, like, just 3 is sufficient for the whole group. And I am going to want a bibliography from each group, right? I want to know which sources you used. You had a question as well, Alexa?
Same question.
Oh, same question. Okay, Megan.
I kind of have a question. If we happen to like have a textbook, like an actual textbook that we didn't get from the library, would that still be okay to use?
Run it by me first.
Okay.
Yeah, show it to me, and I'll make the determination. So yeah, if you have something that doesn't quite fit the guidelines that you think is still useful, on a case-by-case basis, I might allow it, right? But I need to see it first. Anything else?
What's the current Galileo password?
Evil, I think.
Evil?
Mm-hmm.
That's
I
interesting.
have it on one of my syllabus.
That's interesting.
I think I can tell you right now.
Someone has a pretty low expectation.
You should just
Yeah,
look
the password for campus access for Galileo is evil.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, Eagle.
No, evil.
Evil. Evil. Oh wow.
E-I-L.
It's on my syllabus.
Have dark forces taken over the library? That's actually kind of awesome.
And Gilgamesh and Galileo use the same password, right?
No, Gilfind actually uses a PIN number.
Yeah, and that's a weird pin too. Like it's nowhere else.
Yeah, yes. If you don't know how to access Gilfind, if you don't know how to get your PIN number, just again come talk to me. I'll help you figure that out. Right.
If the library's embracing their dark side, I mean, I'm good with that though.
Yeah. It's perfectly fine with me. Okay. So, oh yeah, Alexa.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
What if we know an old folk tale that ties into our topic? Could we use that as a source?
You could probably work it like the sorts of things I want you to use as sources are generally going to be like articles or books explaining the text in some way, right?
Yeah.
So if you have that, like one of those old folk tales, that's cool, and you can work it into the presentation in some way.
Okay.
But it wouldn't really count towards your secondary sources.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, so as far as how you're going to be graded on this, right? Your command of the material, right? How well you seem to know what you're talking about is going to be worth 5 points. The quality of your supporting materials, right? Any sort of handouts or visual aids you use, right, is going to be worth 5 points. So yes, I do expect you to use handouts and visual aids. The quality of your research, 3 points. The comments from your group members will contribute 2 points towards your grade, right? And your overall presentation will be worth 5 points. You will each be graded individually. Right, so if somebody from your group doesn't pull his or her weight, it's not going to sink everybody. So the whole thing is worth a total of 20 points. All right, any more questions or discussions about the group presentation projects? We all know what we have to do and when we have to do it, and where we can go if we need help or questions. Okay, great. So then let's talk, come on. Nothing in this room cooperates. Let's talk about the Epic of Gilgamesh. How many of you have read this or something like it before? Okay, yes, several of you have at least a passing familiarity with Gilgamesh. Okay, cool. Those of you who have not read this before or have no familiarity with it, how'd this go for you?
It was easier to read than some of the other creations.
Okay, what made this easier to understand, Arlene?
For me, it was the repetitiveness.
Okay.
So it gave me a chance to understand what was going on before it switched topics.
Yeah, there's a lot of repetition here. Does anybody know why there's so much repetition in a text like this? Yeah, Daniel.
It's just an oral that you're repeating again and again.
Yeah, this is a reflection of the origins of epic as a literary genre, right? It has its origins in what's called oral formulaic poetry. Now, by the time the Epic of Gilgamesh is composed, it's already a long-standing literary tradition, right? We know that the first Gilgamesh poems are a set of independent poems in the Sumerian language that date from around 2100 BCE, so like end of the 3rd millennium BCE. And they're not a continuous narrative, right? They're a series of independent episodes that feature Gilgamesh and Enkidu as heroes. So there is probably an earlier oral tradition about Gilgamesh that is then sort of encoded into these poems. we get a full-blown, developed, continuous epic narrative about Gilgamesh around 1700 BCE, and what we call the Old Babylonian version, which actually seems to have been pretty widely circulated. There are complete and incomplete copies of this found all over the Middle East. But this is still not the version that you read. This is an earlier version. The version that you read is considered sort of the most developed, kind of final version of the tale. And it was composed around 700 BCE. It's usually called the Standard Akkadian version. That's the language in which it is written. And we can even identify an author for this, a guy by the name of Sinleki Unini. Yes, Megan.
That's a huge jump of time. What were the changes in there? Do we know?
Well, the change between this early version and the sort of intermediate version here are that the poems are sort of welded together into a continuous story. There are some significant differences as well between the Old Babylonian version and the Standard Akkadian version. The Standard Akkadian version is the most complete that we have. So we don't know about everything that was in the Old Babylonian version. By and large, what we use the Old Babylonian version for now is to fill in gaps in the narrative where the Standard Akkadian tablets are damaged. Right? Because this is 700 BCE. This is a very, very old poem that we know essentially from a few physical artifacts that happened to survive because they were buried under sand for thousands of years. Right, so some names are different in the Old Babylonian version. A few episodes are slightly different, but they're broadly similar.
I mentioned possible changes in the vernacular of the time.
Sure. Well, yeah, they're in different languages.
I mean, that's 1,000 years though. That's like
Mm-hmm.
huge.
Yeah, it's an incredible jump of time, and it kind of does sort of put in perspective. I mean, just how, like, in the broad scope of human history. I mean, like how far back some of these traditions go and how long they survive. I mean, this is a civilization that it's gone now, but it lasted for a couple of millennia in various forms. And then these tablets are lost until the mid-19th century. Right? They disappear somewhere around the 3rd century BCE. And then a couple of British explorers in the 1800s dig them up somewhere in Iraq. So yeah, it is a huge jump of time. And the story does change. The story does alter a bit. But these repetitions that Darlene noted, right? These are even though the poem was now a written tradition, epics, even those that are literary epics, tend to use these same sort of tropes. Right? You'll have these sort of stock scenes, right? We have different kinds of repetition. We have stock scenes that tend to be broadly similar to each other, for example. Can you give me an example of this? Like sort of a set of scenes where more or less the same thing happens with a slight difference?
The dreaming.
Yeah, very good. Yes, thank you, Kayla. The dreams. Right? The dreams are a good example of what we call incremental repetition. Same linguistic formulas. Same basic scene, but there's something slightly different in each dream, right? And sometimes the meaning of the dream is slightly different. Parallel characters, parallel scenes, these sorts of things are often features of epics that originated in oral tradition. Anything else? Those of you who are not familiar with epic or with early Middle Eastern literature or with this epic in particular, anything else that struck you about this? Anything else that you found weird or interesting? Anything at all?
Where did he get the idea that cutting down a cedar tree would make him eternal? Like, it doesn't say where, it just all of a sudden he knows that's what he has to do.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, when we look at that particular episode, right, it might help if we think of this in terms of broader Mesopotamian cultural beliefs, right? Now, the Mesopotamian afterlife was a lightless underground kingdom called Irkalla. And the afterlife concepts of most ancient religions, frankly, kind of suck. Right? The Egyptians are an exception in this case, that they actually have a positive afterlife concept. But if you look at the Greek religion, Mesopotamian religion, even the early Israelite religion before Judaism fully develops, the afterlife is basically just it's this hole in the earth where the souls of the dead flit around endlessly, and it's boring, and you don't remember anything in your previous life, and nobody remembers you, right? So go ahead, Megan.
Isn't that like a result of their environment though, and like how well their environment treats them?
How do you mean?
Okay, well, in the Judeo-Christian early theology,
Mhm.
we have the Israelites who basically were enslaved for a large portion of their beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they kind of thought they had a vengeful God. You have, all these different
Mhm.
traditions where the environment's really harsh on them, and the
Yeah.
Mesopotamians had it relatively easy compared to the rest
Sure.
of them.
And the Romans as well had a relatively fertile
Right.
land to develop, but they had a similar kind of afterlife that was still sort of dark and lightless. The basic point.
The Romans probably just stole it from someone else.
Oh sure. Well, they, like they did with their territory, their gods.
Because Roman mythology came from the Greeks, didn't it?
Well, yes and no, but we'll get to that in a little more detail when we talk about Roman epic a little. Yeah, I mean, the Romans do sort of merge some of their own earlier gods with Greek gods. But we're not really talking even about gods here, right? We're just talking about what people believed happened after you died. And these afterlives weren't punishments, but they weren't rewards either. That was the whole point, right? You're not rewarded and you're not punished. Everybody gets the same afterlife, and it's fairly shitty. The only way you get any kind of halfway decent afterlife is if people remember you after you're gone. If they remember you, then they continue to make sacrifices for you, right? So that you continue to have marginally nicer things than everyone else in the afterlife. The only things you can have are things that people in the world above give you. So we'll see in the second half of this epic, Gilgamesh performing a ritual to give someone in the afterlife a variety of objects that they'll need. But for our purposes right now, what we really need to sort of think is that, the afterlife doesn't really matter all that much. What matters in Mesopotamian culture is what you do when you're alive. So the cedar tree itself is probably not all that big a deal, right? When we look at Humbaba as a figure, I mean, we think about where Gilgamesh's city of Uruk is located, right? It's located in southern Iraq. So just imagine, so that I don't have to make a shitty drawing here, that this field here represents southern Iraq, right? Here's the city of Uruk. Now Lebanon, where the cedar forest is way, way, way over here, right? Actually on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. So Uruk and Lebanon are not actually that close together. Humbaba is not a threat to Gilgamesh or to his people. There's no good reason for Gilgamesh, as king and protector of Uruk, to want to go after this monster, except that killing the monster and building a new door for the temple will bring him lasting fame, will bring him glory, right? The real immortality for a person in the ancient world is in the world above. As long as people in the world above are still saying your name, are still telling stories about you, this is what matters. This is how you attain immortality. So that's why he goes off hunting the cedar tree. There are other explanations that have been offered by people who study the epic. One of them has to do with tension between the civilized world and the natural world. We'll maybe talk about that when we talk about Enkidu. But this, I think, is a bigger part of the major thrust of the epic. And this is going to be a big thing to keep in mind for when we read the remaining tablets for next week. You look like you have something to say, Zach?
The whole doesn't Gilgamesh say something about going after Egon Baba for the glory of the matter?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you get the character in the story laying out his motivations for it,
Yeah.
and then the academic comes along and says, well, no, that's not it. It's about nature and the conflict between civilization and nature.
Yeah, and I will say, like, the conflict between civilization and
I mean, that
nature,
definitely
actually, it does
shows up.
matter, yeah.
It shows up in other parts, but him going after the cedar tree had nothing to do with that conflict. It was, or at least for his motivations within the story itself.
Yeah, and I'm just, I'm trying to present alternate
Also,
viewpoints.
weren't the cedar trees special in some way? Weren't they just really like big or something? I don't have my book yet, so I'm having to do this
Right.
from last time I was in this class.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah, I mean, cedar trees are, cedars are large. The cedar forests of Lebanon. The main point, the reason he has to go to Lebanon to get the cedars is not necessarily because the cedars themselves are all that special. It's because they're guarded by this monster that he has to kill to get them. And killing the monster will make him famous.
So it's not about that specific monster. It could have been any monster. That was just the closest monster.
It probably could have been any monster, yeah. And this particular monster happens to be guarding an object that he can use to make a kind of monument as well, right? So,
Motivations haven't really changed. I mean,
Well,
modern day, people are still seeking fame more than anything else.
sure. Well, and it makes you think about, like, the difference between, what makes for a good sort of culture hero and what makes for a good king, right? That's actually one of the other broad themes in the epic, is the tension between the motivation of the hero and the motivation of the king. How many of you how many of you have seen any, like, the Avengers movies? Okay, that's several of you, right? How many of you watch, I think, what is it, the Age of Ultron? No, they make the sentient computer that goes berserk and all that, yes. Pardon?
That movie was awesome.
I didn't hate it. But the point I'm trying to make here, if you read comic books, if you watch superhero movies, right? Yes, these superheroes protect the planet from all sorts of horrible alien threats, right? But they also do incredible amounts of collateral damage. I mean, like Iron Man and the Hulk are, you don't want them showing up in your town, right? If you're going to have a battle with something, please do it outside. Please go somewhere else.
I mean, Batman versus Superman, they still kind of destroyed, like, just tons and tons of Earth.
Sure. I mean, yeah, you watch superhero cartoons, you watch superhero movies, and they're always, these superpowered people hurling each other into buildings and tearing shit up, right?
You just wonder who's going to clean this up.
Yeah.
Well, it's all clearly a scam. Tony Stark obviously owns a construction company.
Yes. He probably does. And I'm sure that Bruce Banner, designed some sort of special alloy that they use. So they all benefit in the end, right? It's all crony capitalism. But the point I'm trying to make here, right, is that heroes are both necessary and destructive, right? And their function is in conflict with the function of a good ruler. As the people of ancient Mesopotamia conceived of a good ruler, right? Now, if we look at Gilgamesh's behavior, for example, at the beginning of the epic, right? When we first meet this guy, is he a good king? How does he treat his people? How does he behave?
He kills people and rapes their daughters.
Yeah, basically, right? He's constantly, go ahead.
Steals all the wedding nights.
Yeah, and in some cultures, the king actually had that right, right?
In British times, in medieval England, I believe they were doing that to the Scottish. If
Yeah.
the Scottish in England were at war. Have you ever seen the movie Braveheart?
Okay, I'm just going to make a quick point. Braveheart is actually really bad history.
Right.
It's a good movie, it's a fun movie, but historically almost completely inaccurate.
Yeah.
I mean, there was like, if I remember correctly, the king only got away with that in Scotland for a short amount of time. They were having a lot of problems, and they needed all the allies they could get.
Hey, y'all know William Wallace was a nobleman, right?
Mhm.
He wasn't some
And he-
backwoods poor farmer rebel. He was one of the people he was killing.
And he had English titles as well as Scottish. That was the thing, is that, you know, it's, but, yeah, Braveheart aside. Okay, yes, that concept of first knight is similar, right? But it was not uncommon for kings in the ancient world to have that particular right. One of the king's functions, right, was to ensure the fertility of the land. Now, this meant participation in fertility rituals, like perhaps sleeping with brides on their wedding nights, right? That was, you know, about increasing the fertility of the people. They also had to do things like oversee irrigation projects, right? Sort of more mundane kinds of fertility projects.
But that also promotes like a big father figurehead role too, right? Like,
Yeah, the king might quite literally be father of the nation.
right.
Yeah. So yeah, just ponder that for a moment. So the king was also the chief priest. He was meant to sort of lead religious rituals. The chief judicial official. And the leader of the army. So we had military, legal, religious, and let's say agricultural functions. Right? Now, what does a hero do? Protect, right? And how does a hero usually, does a hero
I mean,
protect?
in general, heroes would only fill the military function.
Basically, yeah. A hero is, in mythology, usually someone who goes out and punches things, right? Yeah, Matthew.
Heroes often, from what I've read in various stories, they often come like when the situation is most dire, like when it's always in the darkest part of the situation.
Yeah, and then when things are normal, you don't actually want these people around, right? Because these are people who are super normal, right? They are above normal. So the hero deflects threats to civilization, but is often himself a threat to civilization. Think about, for example, the myths of the Greek hero Heracles, right? On the one hand, yes, he goes out and tames monsters, but it's because he has periods where he goes crazy and slaughters everybody. So he's making, being kept away from other people to prevent him from doing harm.
General MacArthur. General MacArthur was really good in militaries, and then, when it was in time of peace, he brutally killed veterans and then had to be taken away from the public scene.
Yeah, I don't know too much about the story of MacArthur, yeah, but it is that's it. It's a similar sort of situation. Yeah, somebody who is very, very accomplished in one area of life is not necessarily someone you want hanging around with others. So these are the things Gilgamesh is supposed to be doing, but instead he is indulging his own appetites, his own pleasures all the time, right? If you look on page 101, he was perfection in height, ideally handsome. In the enclosure of Uruk, he strode back and forth, lording it like a wild bull, his head thrust high. The onslaught of his weapons had no equal. His teammates stood forth by his game stick. He was harrying the young men of Uruk beyond reason. Gilgamesh would leave no son to his father. Day and night he would rampage fiercely. This was the shepherd of ramparted Uruk. This was the people's shepherd. So have we seen this reference to the king as people's shepherd before? If we think back to 2 days ago. Okay, yes, a couple of you are nodding, right? This was a formulaic title in ancient Mesopotamia, right? The idea that the king was the people's shepherd. You still see this appearing even in Christian literature, right? The idea of, Jesus is the good shepherd who watches all the sheep, right? This is a direct line, there's a direct line of descent from that, or from this to that, right? The idea of the king, the ruler, as the person who is supposed to protect the people and keep them in line. Now, when the author of the epic says that Gilgamesh is the people's shepherd, superb, accomplished, and mature, is he being sincere or sarcastic? Yeah, this is an ironic comment. As we've noted, Gilgamesh is a lousy king. Gilgamesh would leave no girl to her mother. The warrior's daughter, the young man's spouse, goddesses kept hearing their plaints. The gods of heaven, the lords who command, said to Anu, "You created this headstrong wild bull and ramparted Uruk. The onslaught of his weapons has no equal. His teammates stand forth by his game stick." Right? Repetition, repetition, repetition. So what is the gods' response then to the Gilgamesh threat, to the Gilgamesh problem? Yeah, let's make another one, right? Let's make an equal for him, right? Someone to match him. And so, the beast man Enkidu is created. And he lives out on the steppes, hanging out with animals, not wearing pants, drinking fresh water from springs, and, basically, eating grass. So, how is it that Enkidu and Gilgamesh, how is it that their interests first come into conflict? Yeah, every time the hunters set snares in the steppe where he lives, he breaks the snares. He frees the animals. He won't let the hunters do their work, right? So he's interfering with human activity, right? He's interfering with sort of one of those basic civilizing activities. No food gathering for you. So then, what do we have to do with a problem like Enkidu to bring it to heel?
Bring in a woman.
Yes. That's the solution, right? That's Gilgamesh's solution. Right? Send out the temple harlot. Now, one thing to note here as well is that temple prostitution was, a common practice in this particular culture, right? So Shamhat, the prostitute, is not, she's not a streetwalker, right? She would have been a reasonably respected person, right? She's a priestess of the goddess Ishtar, who's the goddess of love, fertility, and, interestingly enough, war. This is what happens when two cultures come together and you amalgamate gods that don't necessarily have anything to do with each other, but that's neither here nor there. So Shamhat is a priestess of the goddess Ishtar, right? She's not, the text refers to her as a prostitute, but that's not all that she is. And her task is to tame the beast man, right? If you look on page 104, Shamhat loosened her garments. She exposed her loins, he took her charms. She was not bashful, she took his vitality. She tossed aside her clothing, and he lay upon her. She treated him, a human, to woman's work, as in his ardor he caressed her. 6 days, 7 nights was Enkidu aroused, flowing into Shamhat. After he had his fill of her delights, he set off towards his beasts. When they saw him, Enkidu, the gazelles shied off. The wild beasts of the steppe shunned his person. Enkidu had spent himself, his body was limp. His knees stood still while his beasts went away. Enkidu was too slow, he could not run as before, but he had gained reason and expanded his understanding. So he spends a whole week having sex with the temple prostitute. And what is the effect on him then?
He becomes more civilized.
It's starting, right? The process isn't finished here, but the civilizing process is underway.
The animals no longer trust him.
Yeah, he's got human smell on him now, right? You ever go out in the yard when you were a kid and your mother told you, don't move that baby bird, it'll get human smell on it, his mother won't come back for it? Right. That's not actually true, right? The reason the mother doesn't come back is because you moved the damn thing and now she can't find it. It's nothing to do with human smell. But that seems to be the principle at work here, right? Enkidu now stinks like human. Human is threat. Run away from human. So the beasts reject him. What else happens to him here now? Yeah.
He's not as fast as he used to be. So all of his physical stature, his speed and possibly his strength and everything is slowly starting to diminish at the exchange of attaining more reasoning.
Yeah, exactly. His physical powers have ebbed a little bit, right? He's still much faster and stronger than the average person, but not to the extent that he used to be. And the trade-off is that his mind is now expanded, right? So this is representative of the way sort of civilized life, learning, education, knowledge soften a person a bit, right? You don't have the sort of hard-edged survival instinct that you have to have when you just run around naked on the steppes of animals all the time, right? If you live in society, there are other people to support you, or to help support you anyway. Okay, so the process continues. Right, she promises to take him, the bottom of page 104, to Gilgamesh, right? Come then, let him see your face. I will show you Gilgamesh. Where he is, I know full well. Come then, Enkidu, to ramparted Uruk, where fellows are resplendent in holiday clothing, where every day is set for celebration, where harps and drums are played. And the harlots, too, they are the fairest of form, rich in beauty, full of delights. Even the great gods are kept from sleeping at night. Enkidu, you have not yet learned to live. Oh, let me show you Gilgamesh, the joy-woe man. Look at him, gaze upon his face. He is radiant with virility, manly vigor is his. The whole of his body is seductively gorgeous. Mightier strength has he than you, never resting by day or night. O Enkidu, renounce your audacity. Gilgamesh is beloved of Shamash. Anu and Lil and Ea broadened his wisdom. Ere you come down from the uplands, Gilgamesh will dream of you in Uruk. And then Gilgamesh relates his dreams. Right, okay, this is what I'm actually looking for here, right? Page 107, sorry. He heard what she said, accepted her words. He was yearning for one to know his heart a friend. The counsel of Shamhat touched his heart. She took off her clothing, with one piece she dressed him, the second she herself put on. Clasping his hand like a guardian deity, she led him to the shepherds' huts, where a sheepfold was. The shepherds crowded around him. They murmured their opinions among themselves. So step one in civilizing process was sex, right? Was human contact. He had not before had contact with another human being. So once he has had intimate contact with another human being, this gets things rolling. What's step two? What's the next thing he needs to start becoming a civilized person? What does she give him here now? Yeah, clothing, right? All right, so we've broadened your understanding. Now put on some pants, damn it.
kind of seems pretty interestingly close to the Judeo-Christian Adam and Eve story.
Mm-hmm.
Because, once they took the apple, that
Yeah.
widened their mind.
Yeah,
and-
the emphasis is a little different though, right?
Right.
Here, it's arguably a positive thing that Enkidu is expanding his mind and putting on clothes, and it's at least presented to him as a positive thing, right? Whereas in the Adam and Eve story in Genesis, it's presented as a punishment, right? It's a sort of a fall from the state of innocence. And this is also a fall from the state of innocence, but it's not represented as unambiguously negative. And look, you will see a lot of parallels between certain things in this epic and certain things you might be familiar with, especially from sort of the early books of the Bible. And there's a pretty simple explanation for all of this, right? Southern Iraq, where these stories originated, is also where the people who became the Israelites originated. So it comes from exactly the same cultural root. So similarity in these stories is not coincidental, right? It's coming from more or less the same place. Even if it does end up sort of being expressed in different ways as the cultures diverge. All right, so civilizing process continues. This fellow, how like Gilgamesh in stature tall, proud as a battlement. No doubt he was born of the steppe, like the force of heaven, mighty is his strength. They set bread before him, they set beer before him. He looked uncertainly, then stared. Enkidu did not know how to eat bread, nor had he ever learned to drink beer. The harlot made ready to speak, saying to Enkidu, "Eat the bread, Enkidu, the staff of life, drink the beer, the custom of the land." Enkidu ate the bread until he was satisfied. He drank 7 juglets of the beer. His mood became relaxed. He was singing joyously. So next step here is, what's the next thing Enkidu has to do to become civilized? He has to eat and drink, and he has to eat and drink, right, not fresh water and grass, but bread and beer. Why are bread and beer significant?
Well, it's foundations. Bread and beer are the foundations of civilization. It's the reason, wheat is the reason why humans stopped roaming the plains.
Exactly, yeah. You domesticate crops, you domesticate wheat, right? You can grow your own food, and you can build a city, right? You can't start building cities until you have agriculture. And wheat is a necessary crop for producing both bread and beer. Now, bread and beer also don't just grow in the field, right? They're produced by human activity. These are processed foods, right? You have to have, skilled people make them. So, step 3 here, right, is eating human food. He felt lighthearted and his features glowed. He treated his hairy body with water. He anointed himself with oil, turned into a man. The final thing that turns him into a man here is taking a bath. This is the first time we see someone doing this in the epic, but it is not going to be the last. Usually when we see a character taking a bath and anointing himself with oil, it indicates some sort of change of state. Right? The character is not quite the same thing now that he was before he took this bath, or he's sort of washing the old life away and stepping into a new kind of stage. So, both of these, one thing that Enkidu and Gilgamesh have in common with each other at least at this early stage in the epic, is that they are both liminal figures. Right, now we introduced this concept of liminality last time. Does anybody remember what this means? What it means to be liminal?
Between two things.
Exactly, yeah, it's an in-between state. right? We talked in that cannibal spell, right? The horizon is an in-between space, right? Between earth and sky. So Enkidu is, at least at the time he's created, a sort of liminal figure between man and beast. What about Gilgamesh? In what way is Gilgamesh a liminal figure?
Between man and God.
Man and God, yeah. He is two-thirds of is it 2/3 divine, 1/3 human, or is it the other way around? I forget. Okay, yeah, 2/3 divine, 1/3 human, right? So yeah, so he is partway between man and God. He's a demigod. And when these two do finally meet, where is it that they meet? Where do they fight?
In a doorway.
In a doorway, yeah, exactly. Enkidu approached him. They met in the public street. Enkidu blocked the door to the wedding with his foot, not allowing Gilgamesh to enter. They grappled each other, holding fast like wrestlers. They shattered the doorpost, the wall shook. Gilgamesh and Enkidu grappled each other, holding fast like wrestlers. They shattered the doorpost, the wall shook. They grappled each other at the door to the wedding. They fought in the street, at the public square. It was Gilgamesh who knelt for the pin, his foot on the ground. His fury abated, he turned away. After he turned away, Enkidu said to Gilgamesh, "As one unique did your mother bear you, the wild cow of the ramparts Ninsun, exalted you above the most valorous of men, and Lil has granted you kingship over the people." They kissed each other and made friends. So, a couple of important things happen here. One, the location of the battle is important, right? The fact that it happens in a doorway, right, in one of these kind of in-between spaces. Right? In fact, the word liminal comes from the Latin limen, which means a threshold. What is Gilgamesh on his way to when Enkidu stands in the doorway and stops him?
A wedding.
He's on his way to a wedding, yeah. Probably not his own wedding. Probably one of these fertility rituals that is it's the king's prerogative to participate in. But nonetheless, Enkidu is getting between Gilgamesh and that particular right or responsibility, which is then forgotten once the fight is over. And Enkidu and Gilgamesh start having adventures together. Yeah, Kayla.
The thing about the doorway, it breaking can be kind of symbolic because they're going to do things together.
Uh-huh.
But during the dream episode, Enkidu is always placed in the doorway.
Yeah.
And Gilgamesh is sheltered.
Yeah. That's absolutely right. Enkidu watches over Gilgamesh while he sleeps and remains in the doorway to prevent anything from getting in, and also is the one who makes that circle of flour every night around Gilgamesh, which the purpose of that, it's like a sort of magic circle to keep evil spirits out. Right? It's sort of one of those superstitious things that early cultures did. So yeah, but that's all Enkidu. That's all on Enkidu. That's all Enkidu's responsibility. Enkidu is the door blocker extraordinaire. He's on the one hand protecting Gilgamesh, but also in a certain sense perhaps getting in Gilgamesh's way. There is a certain line of interpretation of the epic which suggests that the friendship with Enkidu further distracts Gilgamesh from his responsibilities as king.
Well, it is that friendship that ultimately leads to him becoming a good king in the second half.
By the time we get around to the very end of the epic, yeah. But in a very, very roundabout way.
The gods ain't put anything straight on.
No, well, and it seems like, we're also talking about a culture in which the gods don't really agree on anything. Right? Some gods like you, some gods don't like you. Some gods don't like anybody. But nonetheless, right, the other important thing to regard here, right, is who wins the fight?
Gilgamesh.
Oh, yeah. Right, Gilgamesh kneels for the pin. Gilgamesh defeats Enkidu and establishes his superiority, right? Okay, yes, we'll be friends now, we'll work together, but it's clear who's number one. It's clear who is in charge. So for the remainder of his life, Enkidu is going to become more like Gilgamesh. Right? The relatively gentle civilizing process that Shamhat had instituted for Enkidu gives way to Gilgamesh's instruction, which is not nearly the same thing. Right. Once they make friends, what's the first thing they decide to go off and do?
Kill something.
Yes, let's go kill a thing together. You're mighty, I'm mighty. Right? Let's make all of these gigantic weapons that no normal human being could possibly carry. Let's schlep all the way over from southern Iraq to Lebanon, and let's kill this guy who isn't really bothering us.
Sounds like friendship to me.
Yeah. It's a regular bromance. Now, who is it that initially raises objections to the little adventure? Which one of them doesn't want to go? Yeah, at first it's Enkidu, right? Enkidu doesn't want to go. Enkidu does not think this is such a good idea. Right, page 110. How shall the likes of us go to the forest of cedars, my friend? In order to safeguard the forest of cedars, and Lil has appointed him to terrify the people, and Lil has destined him 7 fearsome glories. The journey is not to be undertaken, the creature is not to be looked upon. The guardian of the forest of cedars, whom Baba's cry is the roar of a deluge, his maw is fire, his breath is death. He can hear rustling in the forest for 60 double leagues. Who can go into his forest? Adad is first and whom Baba is second. Who, even among the gods, could attack him? In order to safeguard the forest of cedars, and Lil has appointed him to terrify the people. And Lil has destined him 7 fearsome glories. Besides, whosoever enters his forest is struck down by disease. Right? This is dangerous. Humbaba is scary. There's no way we can prevail. Let's just stay home. Gilgamesh made ready to speak, saying to Enkidu, Why, my friend, do you raise such unworthy objections? Who, my friend, can go up to heaven? The gods dwell forever in the sun. People's days are numbered. Whatever they attempt is a puff of air. Here you are, even you, afraid of death. What has become of your bravery's might? I will go before you. You can call out to me, Go on, be not afraid. If I fall on the way, I'll establish my name. Gilgamesh, who joined battle with fierce Humbaba, they'll say. So Gilgamesh's bravado here is based on this Mesopotamian concept, gaining glory in this life. Right. You go ahead and stay home if you want to, little friend. More glory for me. Safety, security, all of the pleasures of this world are fleeting. We only enjoy them for a short time anyway. And so, why not do something great with the limited amount of time that we're here? Right. This is the thing, and you'll see this when we look at Greek epic as well, right? This is the same thing that motivates a lot of the ancient Greek heroes. This idea that life is short, and the only real immortality you leave behind is back in the surface world. This life is the life that matters, and what you do in this life. You were born and grew up on the steppe. When a lion sprang at you, you know what to do. Young men fled before you. You speak unworthily, how you pule, you make me ill. I must set my hand to cutting a cedar tree. I must establish eternal fame. Come, my friend, let's both be off to the foundry. Let them cast axes such as we'll need. So off to the forest they go. Now, once they actually encounter Humbaba, how's the fight go? Do they have much difficulty with him? No. There's 2 of them, and he's not wearing most of his 7 fearsome glories, right, at the time that they show up. You remember when we talked last time about how, people in ancient Egypt believed that you had a ka that was like a sort of vital spark, and that gods and pharaohs had more kas than other people. This is a similar sort of concept, right? These glories, these powers that Humbaba has, right? They're the things that make him more than mortal, but he can also take them off and put them on. So he's not wearing all of his glories when they show up. So they catch him by surprise. And they're able to defeat him relatively easily. And Humbaba begs for his life. And who's ready to spare him after he begs? Yeah, Gilgamesh, the guy who was so gung-ho about going out there and killing this creature, is the one who's okay with the idea of sparing him once he begs for his life. Oh, okay, you'll stay here and guard the forest for me? Yeah, I think I'd be all right with that. Maybe I can let you live. But who is it that insists that Humbaba be killed? Yeah, Enkidu, through Gilgamesh's influence, has become nastier, has become more vicious. Right, this is a guy who, just a few short tablets ago, was protecting animals from the hunter's traps, was so enraged by the idea that Gilgamesh was sleeping with brides on their wedding nights that he came to Uruk to stop him. And now, when he has a creature at his mercy, begging for its life, he's the one who demands that they kill it.
It sounds like a power thing, though. Like, you don't have power over something that's dead. So you mean that Gilgamesh would show mercy in Right.
order to have a powerful servant, and that would be worth more to him
Right.
than
I mean,
the head of Humbaba.
Right.
killing is one thing. Taming.
Yeah, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if we think about it, like, I know that it's kind of horrible to speak of it in these terms, but him
Mhm.
taking on a bride on their first night, that is very emblematic of power.
Sure.
So, I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
It's good to be the king. Yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, in the fact that he had someone beg for their lives, and he can then, you
Right.
know,
Then he right. It's up to him
right.
whether Humbaba lives or dies.
That alone
Mhm.
is a lot of power, and I mean, that seems like what he's seeking.
Sure. Well, actually, is power what he's seeking?
You see glory.
He's seeking glory, which is something different.
I guess that's true.
If he doesn't kill Humbaba, he doesn't have a trophy to bring back, right? Remember, they make the raft, they cut off Humbaba's head, and they carry the head back with them, right? The head, that trophy, is proof of the deed. Now, if Gilgamesh were a good king, if he was somebody who cared about being king and doing what was best for the land and his people, hey, now we've got our own cedar forest, right? We can go and get lumber. I've got this monster that I've tamed that's going to guard it for me, right? Everybody benefits, with the possible exception of the monster.
You could turn it into like Game of Thrones, like Greek.
Yeah, but that's not what he wants, right? He's not thinking like a king. He's thinking like a hero.
But he's kind of going about the coward way of doing it, because
Mhm.
guess who's leaning in front on the journey, and guess who is
Yeah,
taking and making the decisions
Mhm.
for him.
yeah, Gilgamesh has actually been insulated from a lot of real danger by Enkidu's presence. Enkidu's the guy who's always in the doorway. Enkidu's the guy who interprets his dreams. Enkidu's the guy who encourages him to kill Humbaba so the gods don't get pissed at us. Right? Although one would think the gods would actually get more pissed at you if you kill their appointed guardian, but that's besides the point. Right? The main goal here is to bring back those trophies. The cedar tree for the temple door is the lasting monument, and the trophy to prove that we killed the monster. Never mind that the monster was not at full power and that it was 2-on-1
Wasn't
and all that sort of thing.
threatening anybody.
Yeah, he wasn't actually bothering us.
So technically not a monster.
Yeah, yeah. Probably just, some poor sap.
Nice job.
Yeah. Some poor sap with oversized teeth.
He's about as much of a monster as Gilgamesh is. I
Yeah.
mean, at least Gilgamesh.
Yeah, and Gilgamesh is in some ways a kind of monstrous character. Yeah, what were you going to say, Matthew?
What I was gonna say was that it could also be taken as something like based on Enkidu's perspective, like a revenge standpoint, because when he made out with the temple harlot, as he lost all of his physical stature, and all the beasts left him, he kind of might have felt some more animosity or hatred towards like the animals after they resented him. And that could also be why he was more lean towards killing the guardian of the forest.
Well, I think, I think you might actually be on to something there. There are certain lines of thought regarding the epic that look at Enkidu and Humbaba as kind of parallels of each other. Enkidu is a parallel of Gilgamesh in one way, but is also sort of parallel of Humbaba in that they're both beast men who live in the wild, and Humbaba is the dark version of Enkidu who has never been civilized and isn't going to be given the chance to get civilized. Right? I think there is also something to the fact, right, Enkidu, right, through his 7 days and 7 nights of sex with the harlots, is weakened physically. Humbaba is also weakened physically when they meet him, right? He's not at full strength. And they're there to take things from Humbaba. That's the whole goal, that's the whole plan. Let's take what he's got. All right, so does anybody have any questions about any of this? We're kind of running close to time here. Does anybody have any questions or comments they want to make about this before next time?
I think Gilgamesh's goals we spoke about for the rest of the time. One.
Yeah. Except for those, that, 1,800 years or so
Oh, yeah.
that his story was buried in the ground, but. All right, so I have some guide questions for you for next time. I'm going to put those up. Do with them what you will. We didn't write this week, so be prepared to do some writing next week. What I would suggest you do, right, as you read this and anything we do in the future, right, select a passage that you think you might want to write about before you come to class.
Can
Right.
we use our book while we're writing?
Pardon?
Can we use our book while we're
Oh, while you're writing, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Select a passage that you think has some sort of, important thematic significance in the work as a whole, right? Hey, there's something really important going on here. I think this is what I think I can, make an argument out of this. And yeah, just be prepared to do that when you come to class. All right. Have a good weekend, everybody. We'll see you next Tuesday.